Back in January, Trump issued an executive order on immigration, and today I want to talk about two parts of that executive order.
Hey Riley, I saw you released a new video, so I'm here to check it out.
One part commanded the Department of Homeland Security to publish a weekly list of crimes committed by immigrants.
Trump will publish list of crimes committed by immigrants in reflection of Nazi-era policy. This weekly report from the Homeland Security bears a resemblance to the mandate of the Nazi Institute for Research on the Jewish Question. The Trump administration announced on Thursday that the president had signed an executive order calling for the Department of Homeland Security to publish a weekly report of crimes committed by aliens in sanctuary cities. The order announces its justification as to better inform the public regarding the public safety threats associated with sanctuary jurisdictions. It does not clarify exactly what immigration status categorizes an alien under this order. Cities that do not comply with will have all federal funding pulled, except funds used for law enforcement. Author Andrea Pitzer noticed a similarity between Trump's executive order and a function of the Nazi Institute for Research on the Jewish Question, a political research operation of the Nazi Party opened in 1941. Worth remembering that Nazi Institute for Research on the Jewish Question kept files on crimes committed by Jews. She tweeted, "This material both reflected and bolstered academic debate and stroked public fears about the criminality of Jews." It was found on thefader.com. It goes on at the end to say, violent crimes allegedly committed by the undocumented immigrants was a centerpiece of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're bringing rapists, and some I assume are good people, he said of the Mexican immigrants when he launched his campaign in 2015.
If that sounds super racist, that's because it is.
Follow me, everything is alright.
Now, Trump supporters will defend this by saying that immigrants are not a race, and that's true.
And that's true.
We all know that when Trump is talking about undocumented immigrants, he isn't talking about white people. He's talking mainly about Mexicans. He's even said that when Mexico sends its people, they're bringing crime and drugs and they're rapists.
We already covered that.
You can claim that he's not talking about any specific race here, but you'd have to be ignoring a lot of anti-Mexican immigrant sentiment that he's been spewing for years. His whole plan to build a wall is mainly to keep out Mexican immigrants. He doesn't want to spend billions to build a wall on our northern border. It should be clear by now that when Trump talks about immigrants, that's largely just coded language for Mexicans. But this is really next-level racism. Publishing a weekly list of crimes committed by a particular group is a very Nazi move. And look, I know Hitler analogies are way overused, but the Nazi regime really did order publications to print anti-Jewish propaganda.
Adolf Hitler also published a list of crimes committed by groups he didn't like. In his Tuesday speech, President Trump was light on specifics, except when it came to one of his favorite subjects, crime committed by immigrants. Trump celebrated the creation of the Victims of Crime Immigration Crime Engagement Office, or VOICE. It will, among other things, put out a regular report of the illicit doings of the undocumented. I have ordered the Department of Homeland Security to create an office to serve American victims, he said. We are providing a voice to those who have been ignored by our media and silenced by special interests. It will be paid for by the money spent in the Obama years on advocating for undocumented immigrants. The program is controversial. When Trump referenced it Tuesday, Democrats groaned. There's no evidence that immigrants commit crimes at a higher rate than native-born Americans, and critics worry the reports will skew public opinion unfairly. Let's be clear about what Donald Trump is doing, said Bernie Sanders of Vermont, wrote on Facebook. He is stirring up fear and hatred against immigrants and trying to divide our nation. This article keeps on going, and I'm sure there'll be much more to talk about as I go, so let me just carry on with what he has to say.
The German newspaper Der Stürmer had a series called Letterbox where they published crimes committed by Jewish people.
Der Stürmer, according to a free Wikipedia search, was a weekly tabloid-format Nazi newspaper published by Julius Streicher, a prominent official in the Nazi Party from 1923 to the end of World War II, with brief suspensions in publication due to legal difficulties. It was a significant part of Nazi propaganda and was vehemently anti-Semitic.
A magazine called News Volk also published a series called The Criminal Jew, where they would show photos of Jewish people along with the crimes they had committed.
Yeah, I already covered that one. It was in a previous article, but I was looking into Hitler's rise to power, which began in 1918 to 1924, which would correspond with the 1923 release of anti-Semitic propaganda.
The parallel is just too obvious. Horrible things like the Holocaust don't happen overnight. They happen after years of propaganda like this that teaches people that some group of people is subhuman. Like even before Japanese internment in the US, newspapers like the San Francisco Chronicle ran extremely racist articles talking about how Japanese people were unassimilable.
So I did some reading on that too. The Asians as unassimilable. Before anxieties about Asian immigrants and Asian Americans condensed into a fear of the yellow peril mainstream, at the time mostly white Americans saw Asian Americans as a group they could not identify with or become a part of American culture and society. The idea that Asian Americans were unable or even unwilling to assimilate continued throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries. A time when Asian immigrants were still not legally permitted to become naturalized U.S. citizens, even when Asian Americans made an effort to adopt Western practices. Whites frequently viewed such behavior as insincere.
Horribly racist atrocities don't come out of nowhere. We have to stamp out racist bullshit like this as soon as we see it. Publishing crimes committed by immigrants will create more fear and hatred against immigrants, despite the fact that all immigrants, documented or undocumented, are less likely to commit crime than American citizens. And that data, by the way, comes from the conservative Cato Institute, so don't act like this is a liberal thing.
The Cato Institute keeps statistics and analytics on the happenings of immigration in the United States and also has a few articles as to what immigrants have access to and what they are doing when they come here. Please check out the link in the description.
Actually, immigrants don't commit more crime than citizens who were born in the US. But immigrants do commit crime. They're people, and any large group of people will have some people who commit crime.
So he's kind of right. Actually, no, he's right. I'll give him when he's right, he's right. However, the numbers are kind of close, being that 1.53% of natives are incarcerated, 0.85% of undocumented immigrants, and 0.47% of documented immigrants, making that, 1.32 compared to 1.53.
Proportionally, they're not the big scary threat that Trump is making them out to be. He wants to publicize the few cases there are of undocumented immigrants committing crimes to drum up anti-immigrant hatred. There's no other reason for that kind of weekly announcement. Like, why isn't there an office for victims of white male crime? White men commit crime all the time in this country. Most of our mass shootings have been carried out by white men. Where's the office speaking up for the victims of those crimes? Why don't we publicize a list of all people killed by white men weekly? Because that's not a group that Trump is targeting. He doesn't want people to fear white men, he wants people to fear immigrants.
Here's a fun broad fact I found. According to estimates from 2013 ACS, the United States immigrant population stood at more than 41.3 million, or 13% of the total U.S. population of 316.1 million. Between 2012 and 2013, the foreign-born population increased by about 523,000, or 1.3%. So, as we continue, more and more foreign-born immigrants are coming across. If our country continues to fill at an unregulated rate, will we be able to sustain our population?
Weirdly, the executive order doesn't even say that the publicized crimes have to have been committed by undocumented immigrants. It just says a list of criminal actions committed by aliens.
Alien. Noun. A foreigner, especially one who is not a naturalized citizen of the country where they are living. Naturalization is the process by which U.S. citizenship is granted to a foreign citizen or national after he or she fulfills the requirements established by Congress in the Immigration and Nationality Act. For more information, see UCIS Policy Manual Citizenship and Naturalization Guide.
Which, by the way, is a super dehumanizing word. One of the first steps in justifying hatred and violence against a group is using a word for them that takes away some of their humanity and allows people to imagine them as less than human. But anyway, the order doesn't say illegal aliens, it just says aliens. So this weekly publication could be broadcasting crimes from documented immigrants. But John Kelly, the Secretary of Homeland Security, has said that the point of the weekly publication is to raise awareness about people who never should have been in the country in the first place.
Riley, stop using air quotes and look up what some of these things mean. If you knew the definitions of the words you were using, you wouldn't have to use air quotes thinking they meant something else.
So if they're talking about documented immigrants as well, does that mean the point is to eventually stop all immigration? Do they want people to fear any kind of immigration to the point where we just shut down all our borders? Either way, the message is just that no immigrants are welcome.
Legal immigrants are welcome. Documented citizens are welcome. Illegal aliens are not welcome.
And that's a horrible message to be sending. The second part of the executive order establishes an office under the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency called VOICE, which stands for the Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. It's supposed to offer resources for people who have been affected by crime committed by immigrants. And it's supposed to publish a quarterly report of the effects of victimization by criminal aliens.
VOICE. We sort of covered this a little bit earlier, but let's look at what he's got here. Use a victim-centered approach to acknowledge and support immigration crime victims and their families, promote awareness of rights and services available to immigration crime victims, build collaborative partnerships with community stakeholders assisting immigration crime victims, provide quarterly reports studying the effects of victimization by criminal aliens present in the United States. So we're going to keep statistics and present them quarterly to be aware of what's going on. Why is this a problem?
Whatever that means. VOICE launched on April 26th, which was unfortunate for them because it was Alien Day and people prank called their new hotline for days reporting illegal aliens. Here's the number for that hotline in case you happen to be abducted by a Martian or something. Bullshit like those damn Martians stealing all our jobs. But in all seriousness, this office is just more anti-immigrant propaganda. It's not intended to actually help people. It's just something that Trump can say he did to satisfy all his racist anti-immigrant supporters. I'll be patiently waiting for the day he opens up an office for victims of white male crime.
Statistics are kept about everybody in the United States. Every country keeps statistics and information about what happens in their country and its citizens.
Or he could even just open up an office for victims of mass shootings. We have a lot of mass shootings in the US, but I guess that kind of office wouldn't mesh well with his propaganda. So yeah, VOICE is racist. Publishing a weekly list of crimes committed by a certain group is very Nazi-like. And that's all the Trump bullshit.
Riley.
Bullshit.
Riley.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Riley. They want to keep statistics and help people who are victims of crimes. It's not racist. It's not. Just shut up. Read into the facts. Read a little deeper. Do a Google search instead of just reading the newspaper. Look into the facts behind what you're reading and get the information behind it. On whatever social media platform you're watching me on, upvote, like, subscribe, comment, do something. Let me know you're there. Let me know how you feel. And I'll get back with you later.